In episode 7, Colin is understandably pissed. He can't believe that Penelope was Lady Whistledown this entire time. He followed her there thinking that her carriage driver had kidnapped her, but in reality, he never expected this, and he feels completely betrayed. He leaves Penelope just standing there on the side of the road, and he has to go have a think. As for the letter that she actually published that day, it comes out and it completely discredits anything that Cressida put in her letter, which was a pretty damning letter all about the Bridgertons. It besmirched their good name. It was really embarrassing. But once Penelope's Lady Whistledown comes out and says, Cressida's paper, that ain't me, she's not me, don't believe anything it says, it takes out any actual sting and no one believes her. Because of this, it looks like Cressida is going to be spending her days with her aunt, which she obviously wanted to avoid. The next day, though, as everybody is reading Penelope's Whistledown and the town is abuzz about what happened with Cressida, Penelope, along with her family, are heading to look at a location for the breakfast they're going to have the morning that she's married to Colin. She, however, is just not in the right headspace because all she can think about is what happened with her and Colin the previous day. And as her mother, and her sister are walking to this location, she runs into Eloise and she tells her, yeah, your brother knows. He's really pissed off and we're supposed to marry this week if he wants to, but I kind of doubt it at this point. Eloise tells her, look, I can't help you with this, because Eloise still isn't sure how she feels about the relationship between her brother and her former but quasi-current best friend. She's just very conflicted on it, and Penelope understands. And when Eloise gets home that day, she's confronted by Colin, who demands to know when she found out, because Colin knows that if anybody knew that Penelope was Lady Whistledown, it would be Eloise. And Eloise admits, I only found out last year, and because of it, I just didn't want to deal with it, so I stopped being friends with her. Colin's pretty pissed off about it, but then Eloise goes back at him for falling in love with her best friend, and she goes on to explain that she figured after a while, what did it really matter that Penelope was Lady Whistledown? She wasn't about to tell her brother and ruin his wedding and his love for her best friend. What good would that do? As for Penelope, at this point, she's shown up at the location where they're supposed to have their wedding day breakfast, but it's really awkward between her and Colin, and it's noticeable from both Lady Featherington and Lady Bridgerton. While they plan for this breakfast, over in the corner, Colin and Penelope have an uncomfortable conversation where he says that he will marry Penelope, but it's only because he's a man of honor, he said he would, and he feels entrapped. When he asks her if she's planning on stopping the Whistledown pamphlet, she's honest with him and says, I don't know. And he looks at her completely amazed. He then collects his thoughts and says, let's just get through this wedding and figure out what this marriage is going to be. But this isn't the only awkward interaction that happens that day between a couple. As Violet and Colin had headed out for the day, Benedict had gotten a letter from Lady Tilly Arnold that said, hey, let me explain what happened the other night. And Benedict's willing to hear her out, and she says, look, what me and Paul have is kind of like what me and you have. Like, we're friends with benefits, all right? We like to get down with each other, use our mouths as fun places. The thing about Paul is he likes women, but he also likes men, and he thought that maybe, you'd be down for that. And Benedict tells her, like, I don't really do that, and she's fine with it. She says, okay, but let me and you continue on our own. My staff's discreet. Go think about it. And thinking is exactly what his mother is doing when she got home later that day. She can't quite figure out why the relationship between her son and her future daughter-in-law has become so awkward. But her little brainstorming session gets interrupted when she gets a caller, and it's Marcus. She's surprised. She's also happy. She tells Marcus that the latest news is that her daughter Francesca is to be married to Lord Kilmartin. And he thinks that's great, but he does ask her, when you're done with those affairs with your daughter, do you think me and you could try something? And she's a little taken aback, surprised, but says, I'm not opposed to it. I just won't know if I'm into it until after that wedding is done. A couple days later is the wedding day, but before the wedding day, actually the night before the wedding, Penelope needs to go confide in the one person that really knew the whole time she was Whistledown, and that's the modiste. The person who made her wedding dress, although she's not really there for that. She's just there to talk about what she's going through at the moment, about to marry a guy that she's in love with, but doesn't quite love her back because of this betrayal. And as always, the modiste makes her feel a lot better, having a conversation about true love and all that. But as she's leaving, she runs into Colin in the middle of the night on the street. And Colin immediately wants to know what she's doing because it seems shady, but then he says, no, you know what? I don't want to know. And the two get into an argument because she says, well, what the hell are you doing out here? This argument rolls into Penelope trying to explain herself about the Whistledown papers, Colin not really buying any of it or not wanting to listen. Colin yells at her how foolish she's been. She says, well, I can take care of myself. And he says, well, then what good am I to you? And she yells at him, I love you. And that is when they just can't take it anymore. The sexual tension is too much. And they end up kissing. Colin throwing her against a wall in a darkly lit nook. His fingers once again going to work. But then a carriage drives by and they realize we probably shouldn't be doing this in public the night before our wedding. So I'm just going to put you in the carriage and I'll see you tomorrow. When Colin gets home later that night, he's surprised because Anthony and Kate are back. He expected to see him tomorrow, but he didn't expect him to see him tonight. And Kate tells him, we came back because your mother figured something was going on and we just wanted to have a talk about marriage. And Colin is like, yeah, of course my mom figured out something was wrong. She knows everything. All right, lay it on me. And Kate tells him, marriage is difficult. It's not always easy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's hard work, but you got to put that work in. Because ultimately, true love is worth that hard work. Gives Colin a lot to think about, and then he goes to bed. The next day, most of the town is getting ready to go to the nuptials between Colin Bridgerton, Penelope Featherington, and Lady Danbury is one of those people. As she's preparing to leave, she goes into one of the rooms of her house, and Marcus is waiting for her. And she's pissed off to see him. The last time these two spoke, she was leaving the ball and telling him off. And he came to truly explain himself. Yes, Marcus did end up telling on her as she was trying to escape, but Marcus was also 10 years old. He had no idea what he was doing. Had he known, he wouldn't have done it. But everything was taken out of context and just a big misunderstanding. And as the two talk it out, it seems like they're in a much, much better space. With Lady Danbury now realizing, yeah, I got really mad at a 10-year-old boy. Grow up, Lady Danbury. You know I love you. Lady Danbury then heads to the church, where a very nervous Penelope walks down the aisle. She doesn't know what kind of Colin she's walking down to. But as she's making her way down, Colin gives her a nod, and it puts her entire mind at ease. The two are married. It seems legitimate. It seems like the talk between Anthony, Kate, and himself really hit home, and he seems just generally happy to be marrying Penelope. After the wedding, everybody heads over to the location of the post-wedding breakfast, and everybody's in good spirits. Even Penelope's sisters are complimentary of how she looks that day. It's very out of character. Not too far away from this complimentary fest is Lady Bridgerton and Lady Danbury. Danbury mentions to Violet how she and Marcus showed up together, but she's since lost them. And Violet loves hearing that because she knows that it means Lady Danbury made up with her brother. And Lady Danbury says, yeah, it felt good. Maybe you should try it, though. Looking at Kilmartin and Francesca. To which Violet says, yes, that is the plan. I have to fix that wrong. She actually has every intention of talking to the Queen, but Lady Danbury tells her, you might not want to do it right this second. The Queen's really hung up on trying to find out who Whistledown is, so I'll tell you when the moment's right. Actually, seems like the only person that's not having a good time at this breakfast is Eloise. Her conflicted feelings about the relationship is just still getting at her, and Benedict has to remind her that just because her brother and her best friend married doesn't mean she's losing either of them. She has a special relationship with both, and that special relationship will continue. And even though that's a great pep talk, it doesn't quite work. Eloise has to leave the room. But that pep talk actually got Benedict thinking about the relationship that he has with Lady Tilly Arnold and this possible relationship with Paul. It's got him reconsidering what she talked about with him. Maybe he should give this thruple thing a try. Of course, last season we thought that there might be a thruple situation between Anthony, Kate, and Kate's sister, Edwina. And of course, Edwina went off to marry, and she's currently in India. Kate's giving Anthony an update, and she mentions how she would love to go back to India. And Anthony says, then let's do it. Let's go back to India. Let's actually have our baby in India. Because our baby's always going to be a Bridgerton, but I want our baby to know that it's also a shawarma. And here Kate didn't think that she could love Anthony anymore, but it turns out she could, because she loves that idea. And the two are planning on heading off to India and having their baby there. And then as for the actual happy bride and groom, they decide to buck the trend and dance at this breakfast to a violin concerto of You Belong With Me. It's a real bop. Everybody actually gets involved, including Lord Kilmartin and Francesca, which is a surprise. But Lord Kilmartin was encouraged by her brothers a couple nights ago to be bold. And his idea of being bold is dancing in public. Look, it's baby steps. But all this dancing gets interrupted when the Queen shows up. And the Queen didn't show up to get some bacon and eggs. No, she showed up because she feels like she figured out who Whistledown is. She instructs everybody, not named Bridgerton, to get out of the room. And since Penelope just married into the family, she's forced to stay. And once it's only her and the Bridgertons remaining, she tells them, I know that one of you is keeping a secret. And the longer you keep it, it's going to piss me off. So come forward and confess. Now, Francesca feels like she knows that the secret's about her and Lord Kilmartin. So she comes forward and says, it's me. I've been keeping the secret. I'm supposed to marry Lord Kilmartin. We kept it from you. I apologize. But, hey, can we get married? And the Queen looks at her and says, girl, I don't care who you marry, love marriage, arranged marriage. No. I know one of you is Whistledown. Because it's amazing. When Cressida published lies about this family, Whistledown came and defended that family at all costs. The only justification of this must be because she's one of you. She demands that Lady Whistledown step forward, but nobody does. I mean, Penelope's frozen, and Anthony tells the Queen, I would know if Lady Whistledown was in my family. Of course, he's oblivious. And the Queen, not knowing exactly who it is, just has to accept this, but she does say, all right, well, I'll leave, but I'll find out soon enough who you are. After the Queen does leave, Penelope pulls Colin aside and says, I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do. And he tells her, well, I'm happy that you stayed silent, but this is a good sign that you need to give up the pamphlet. The longer you hide this, the longer this lie is going to hang over us. But Penelope doesn't want to give up Whistledown because she tells Colin, do you know what it's like to have no place that you can truly be yourself? No, you don't, because you're not a woman. You don't have to conceal who you want to be, but I do. And I am Whistledown, and I'm not going to change that. And Colin looks at her and says, well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to sleep on the sofa tonight. Yeah, the night that they get married, he's going to just hit up the love sack. It gets Penelope crying, and the only person she can turn to is her friend Eloise, who does comfort her in that moment. There is one Bridgerton getting laid that night, though, and it's Benedict. He had a good think about it. He heads on over to Tilly Arnold's house. Her, Tilly, Paul, they all get after it. It's hot, it's heavy, and it's going to piss off a lot of conservatives. But all this drama about Whistledown, we haven't talked about the fake one, Cressida, who's trying to figure out how she's going to avoid getting sent off to her aunts. She knows she's going to need money for that, so that night she starts looking around the printers to collect her payment for the Whistledown pamphlet that she sold. Problem is, she doesn't really know what printer she went to, so she just starts going from printer to printer asking for payment, trying to figure out if that's the correct one. And the third one she goes to isn't the right one, but the guy says, yeah, you're not her, right? Because I used to work at a place that did print hers. My boss told me that she was a redhead. Just a normal redheaded girl. And that tips off Cressida enough to figure out who Whistledown really is. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.